Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another Falconry video. Today's video I'm going to be talking about Goshawks and Harrishawks, comparing the two of them, the pros, the cons, how they match up against each other, and hopefully give you some good information if you're trying to choose a bird, especially between these two. But before I do, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. Again, really try to keep this channel up and going, and that really helps. And again, afterwards, please, all the comments you give are very helpful, not only for me, but for everybody else who's watching this channel. It's good to share and collaborate these ideas. So, jumping into our topic today, Goshawks and Harrishawks. These two species, you could say, quite accurately, both of these really have affected falconry more than any other species. Now, the way I'm viewing that as far as their impact on the sport, its continuation, its proliferation, and the impact on humanity. That's kind of strange because goshawks have been part of the sport since almost the beginning. They've been used for thousands of years, while Harrishawks are a matter of a few decades. So it's going to be kind of fun to jump into both these. So let's start off with goshawks, since they, again, were in this sport much earlier than Harrishawks. Goshawks, and when I say goshawk, there are many species of hawks throughout the world that have the title goshawk, and some of them are more closely related than others to what we're talking about. I'm specifically talking about the northern goshawk. What is a northern goshawk? Northern goshawks are circumpolar, which means if you took the globe and you looked at the northern part of the northern hemisphere from the top down, that is kind of their range. We have them here in the United States, where I live here in Utah, but they're in many other countries. But it's a northern bird, a cooler weather bird, even though we do get them in some desert regions. But the northern goshawk, everywhere you live that they occur, there's different subspecies. For example, the Finnish goshawk of Finland and northern Scandinavia and parts of Russia. The Finnish goshawk is the largest and arguably the easiest going. While here in North America, the northern goshawk is one of the most cantankerous compared to some of the old world subspecies of this same species. Everywhere you go, they're going to be a little different. Some of them in parts of Russia and Siberia are very pale, even white. But it's still the same species. It's still the northern goshawk. So this is a true hawk, meaning it's part of the accipiter genus. And accipiters are forest dwellers. They have short, rounded wings and a long tail. Short, rounded wings means you have to flap super fast, but then you're traveling fast. And the shorter the wings, the easier it is to go through dense cover and trees without breaking your wing feathers. Longer tails give you more maneuverability. It makes it so you can turn on a dime. And that is definitely a hallmark of goshawks: speed, agility, and tenacity. Now, northern goshawks can hunt all day long, and in my opinion, that is probably their best thing. You will have, if they're trained correctly, you will have non-stop success hunting. Okay, they just hunt and hunt and hunt, catch prey all day. They don't have to be coaxed into it. If you've trained them right, they're going to be successful. And that is why they've been so prolifically used throughout the ages. You often read in old falconry books that it was often called the cook's bird or the innkeeper's bird, because if you had an innkeeper or you were a cook at an inn, you would go out in the morning, catch several ducks and several rabbits, and then bring them back to the inn, cook them up so that they are ready for the guests by evening, so everybody had their dinner. And there's truth to that. In medieval Europe, many knights preferred to fly this over falcons. Falcons would put on a more amazing show, circling way up and diving down. The days before television and smartphones and YouTube. It's great entertainment, great sport to watch a falcon in action. But a goshawk was more practical, especially when you're going into battle. You bring your goshawk with you when you go to war. And in between battles, that helps you get some good, fresh protein, and you're not as worried about losing them. You're just able to hunt. The goshawk really is the bird version of a shotgun. Okay, highly effective, able to catch both ground quarry like rabbits and squirrels, as well as ducks and geese and pheasants and partridge, quail here in the New World. All these things, they're amazing to catch. Okay, so what's the drawback? What's the drawback to a goshawk when they're just amazing and they've been perpetuated because their high success rate? Well, here are some of the drawbacks to northern goshawks. Their feathers are comparatively brittle. Now, it might seem a contradiction if you see slow motion videos of them. Their feathers are very flexible as they're moving through the air, but they will still break. The shafts themselves are surprisingly brittle. So it's an odd combination of bendable and brittle, and their feathers can break very easily. This is a major pain because if you have a tail, a full train of feathers, if one breaks, they all kind of support each other, so the next one might easily break. Now, we have a process to fix those feathers called imping, which is not what this video is about, but imping is always a huge hassle, even if you're good at it, and it's so much better just to keep the feathers intact. Now, because of that, you have some specialty equipment that is often used, tail guards that when the bird is not being flown, that you put the tail together. Or also when they're on the ground mantling over a kill and that tail is spread out, it might be pushing into the ground. That's another time where you put a tail guard on. If you go through my falconry playlist, I've got some videos on very simple versions of tail guards that can work on any bird. So be sure to go through and find those. But goshawks, that's one of the problems. Goshawks can be aggressive. In theory, any bird can, especially if it's not trained properly. But reading a goshawk properly, they have on-off switches, and that's why I always say if you're working with an accipiter, goshawk, Cooper's hawk, sharp-shinned hawk, sparrowhawk, any of them, it is wise to have a friend or mentor that you can bounce ideas off of that can help troubleshoot you. Someone with experience who can be like, okay, right now, see where that tail is? If you approach that goshawk, it's going to leave the kill and attack your face. Oh, now the tail went in just that much. Okay, go pick them up and they'll be friendly. So learning those. So there's an extra layer of reading and learning that you have to do with a goshawk that you wouldn't with, say, a red-tailed hawk or a Harris hawk or some of these other birds. So that's good to know. Potential for extreme aggression, especially if they're trained wrong. Goshawks are also very susceptible to certain diseases, particularly one called aspergillosis, which is a fungal disease that attacks the lungs. They don't do well, and I've had videos on this earlier, but that is something to be cautious of. Now, it seems that some of the old world northern goshawk subspecies, European goshawks, Finnish goshawks, and some of those are more resilient and resistant to aspergillosis than the goshawks we have here in the United States and Canada. But that is, again, personal experience and talking with other falconers. So goshawks, again, some of the minuses: potential for aggression, potential for being susceptible to certain diseases, and potential for breaking feathers. I would not recommend flying a goshawk if you're flying other birds as well. I'd say, hey, just focus on a goshawk and just hunt every day, and you're going to have a lot of success. Another thing, just as a side issue, any accipiter you fly, if aggression of any kind starts, the quickest way to help solve that, in addition to troubleshooting and finding what's causing it, one of the best ways to smooth over aggression is to redirect the aggression towards quarry. Make sure you're hunting every day with a goshawk, and it'll help smooth things out. And so maybe you don't have that time commitment available if you're doing a goshawk. So that's some of the good and the bad of a goshawk. Truly an epic bird. Watching them fly, it's like fast motion. It's like you're watching a video of a hawk and somebody press fast forward. They're just, and the ability to get up and go, to miss, and then keep and get up and go is incredible. And highly effective hunters and breathtaking to watch. Okay, so Harris hawks now. And why did I pick Harris hawks? They're not even related. Goshawks are accipiters. They're true hawks, forest hawks. Harris hawks, they're not even hawks. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, you know there's the accipiters, which are the true hawks, and there's the bootios, which are your quote-unquote soaring hawks, like a red-tailed hawk or a ferruginous hawk. But everybody else outside of America calls them buzzards, which is not a vulture. A buzzard is a bootio, a soaring hawk, not a true hawk, okay? Harris hawks are neither accipiter nor Buteo. They're classified as parabuteo unicinctus. Para meaning similar or mimicry of. So similar to a buteo, unicinctus meaning it's the only one, right? Well, what on earth are they? Well, if you watch some of my other videos, you know they're actually a branch off of a lineage of Mesoamerican and South American forest eagles. Like the black solitary eagle, the crown solitary eagle, that branch. They're an offshoot from that line, which is strange, which makes for some very strange molt patterns and some very strange behavior. They have long, lurpy legs. But if you just look at a perching Harris hawk and a perching goshawk, and you look at the silhouettes, they're pretty close. They're pretty close in size. They're pretty close in shape as far as the length of the tail, the length of the wings. Now, Harris hawk does have a longer beak and slightly longer legs, but they're pretty close. Goshawk is poofier because, again, Harris hawks are South America, Central America, and Mexico, and barely a little bit into the United States, but they're basically tropical or desert birds, where goshawks are birds of more the extreme north. So you got a cold weather bird versus a hot weather bird. So what's good about a Harris hawk? Almost everything, okay? First of all, ridiculously easy to train. Super easy to train. Anybody can train a Harris hawk, okay? Second of all, weight management. Goshawk, you got to dial it in pretty precisely. Harris hawks, there's a much bigger margin to work with and getting your weight management right. Harris hawks, I mentioned how goshawks have breakable tails. Harris hawks have tail feathers so bendable that you can just bend it completely around the other way without snapping. Can't do that with a goshawk. So they are bendable and resilient in ways that goshawk tails are not. In fact, I've mentioned this in other videos, but when a goshawk breaks a tail feather, I will often replace it in pit with a Harris hawk feather because it's going to last better. It's going to last way better. Harris hawks are very good hunters not only in flight, but on the ground. So if they chase prey to the ground, they long, lurpy, gangly legs, they can run in, they can rush in. And if you've watched some of my videos, I've mentioned where this has come in handy before. I had one time where I had my Harris hawk chased a pheasant into a big giant bush, and I went around one side, she landed on the other side, and she charged in after it for me, and the pheasant was like, oh no, and the pheasant ran to me, and I caught the pheasant with my bare hands. I'm like, does that count as a catch? So that's something that goshawks will run around on the ground, but a Harris hawk is more adapted for that purpose. They understand the principle of falconry from the get-go. What do I mean by that? Falconry is building a relationship of trust and a partnership, okay? You don't own the bird. You think, oh, this is my Harris hawk. Is it? Because it could just take off on you if it wanted. It's not your bird. You don't own it. You might have purchased it from a breeder, okay, but you don't really own it. And at the end of the day, you are trying to work with any raptor to build mutual understanding, mutual trust, and to be a hunting partnership. That is not normal for almost any raptor, but Harris hawks it is, because Harris hawks in the wild, and when you train them in captivity, are pack hunters. They'll have a pack of 5 to 20 of them, and they will all work together. And that's really great. So the idea of like, hey, I'm relying on somebody else, they're relying on me, we're mutually beneficial in this relationship, is genetically already there. And you just have to help them understand that also applies to you as a person, even though you're not a hawk. So that's great. First of all, is part of the reason why they train so easily. But second of all, then not only does that work well, but you can also train them to hunt in packs. Go ahead, get 2 Harris hawks, 3 Harris hawks, and train them to hunt together. That's really neat, to hunt with an organized pack. It's like you're flying velociraptors all going along with you. And it's a lot of fun. So what's bad about a Harris hawk? Well, a couple things. First of all, again, because they're social, they can be very squawky. They can develop. Now, any bird can become vocal, especially if they're improperly trained in relation to food, particularly if they're an imprint. But Harris hawks in particular are known for their squawkiness. And you see it in the wild, as well as with trained birds, that it's almost like, in some ways it can be checking, I'm here, are you here, and you're just kind of like checking in, where are you, as we're going along. There's different theories on what all the squawking means, but it most definitely serves as like, where are you? Oh, where I'm over here. Are we happy? Are we sad? What are we chasing? What are we killing? It's as far as we can tell, it's not advanced communication, but it certainly lets each other know where you're at. And that can be very frustrating. If you get a bird that's constantly vocalizing, it can be really, really obnoxious. And it's a hard habit to break once a Harris hawk or more than one Harris hawks together in your pack picks it up. Doesn't bother you too much in the field, but at home with your neighbors, it can be obnoxious. They cannot handle the cold very well. And that's rough. If you go through my videos, you've probably seen where I mentioned fur anklets on Harris hawks. I've done it on eagles and owls too. I have one, I think, just on it with owl jesses. But I will do rabbit fur anklets because it gets pretty cold in Utah here. So I'll do the anklet that goes around the leg. I will beforehand glue rabbit fur that goes over, and then I'll wrap it around and put the grommet in. That can help. There's other people who've tried other things. In the wintertime, my Harris hawks, when I'm hunting ducks, I've had them get so used to me warming them up in between flights that maybe I'll just, like, kind of stick them under my coat, and they love it. They're like, okay, I can warm up for a second. Or while I'm walking one of my Harris hawks, she would always put her foot up, and I would ball up the foot, wrap my hand around it, and just walking. So she's walking, standing on one foot, and I let my hand, the palm of my hand, warm up her foot, and then we would switch, okay? And that worked. I've never had extreme problems with it, but a goshawk is built for the cold. I mean, some of them are Arctic. So if most areas we hunt in the fall and winter, most traditionally in falconry in the northern hemisphere, you are hunting in the fall and winter when all the wildlife has already given birth or has hatched, and so you're not attacking anything that's raising offspring or still in the process of incubating eggs. You want to go catch a duck if it's still incubating a whole clutch of eggs. So the ethical thing in the northern hemisphere, as well as in my region, our actual wildlife hunting laws are to hunt in the fall and winter. So in that case, if you're in a cold state, it might be easier to fly a goshawk in that sense than a Harris hawk. But then maybe you live in a hot state. If you live in Arizona, sure, makes sense. If you live in a desert region, a Harris hawk is great for that. So there's a lot of good and not too much bad, but bad to be considered for both of these species. Which would I prefer? My personal region, if you said, hey, Ben, I'm not telling you the scenario, but there's prey to be hunted and your goal is just to put dinner on the table, I'm going to go with a goshawk. If you're saying, hey, you need a lower stress bird that you can fly that's more dependable, that you're not going to end up with telemetry chases half the time, and that's you're not as worried about being aggressive, I would go with a Harris hawk. Also, if you said, Ben, you want to fly multiple birds, and one of them has to be a Harris or a goshawk, go with a Harris, because a goshawk is going to do better if you just have that goshawk and just fly it. Harris hawks are fast, but they're never as fast as a goshawk. I'm impressed of how much you can exercise a Harris hawk and build that musculature in their flight muscles and really push them and get them to go fast, almost as fast as a goshawk, but never quite as much. An out-of-shape goshawk that's in moderate shape will still outcompete the fastest Harris. But that being said, you can't fly a goshawk in a pack, and you can with a Harris hawk. So I love both species. Both the northern goshawk and the Harris hawk. I've flown them both many times. I really enjoy both of them and recommend both of them. Goshawks are one of the species that have kept the sport alive for thousands of years. Harris hawks are the species that have revolutionized and resurrected the sport in many countries because it is so easy to train, so much fun, such a joy that in a lot of areas where it was all but dead, it has had this renewed revitalization of the sport. And in many countries, it's now about the only bird being flown, which is pretty impressive. It speaks highly of this weird little mini offshoot of the tropical eagles of South America. So I think that's pretty neat. So let me know down in the comments your thoughts on these, your experiences, which you prefer and why, or what you think would be better for your region. I know we have a lot of people watching this channel from all around the world, and it's fun to hear your comments. It's always neat to hear as a new world species, the Harris hawk. It's neat to see when I hear stories of people on the other side of the world flying them. So let me know again your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and as always, happy hawking.